All right, Democratic leaders are going all in on suspected MS-13 gang member. Three names, one man, Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is throwing his weight around with a possible El Salvador boycott. This must really hurt them, over Garcia's detention, directing Illinois agencies to review potentially cut ties with companies linked to the country. And not to be outdone, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz used his state address to talk about how Trump is throwing fathers into gulags.
In this land of the free and home of the brave, we have university students being swept up, shoved into unmarked vans, and fathers being tossed into Salvadorian gulags without a hint of due process. So I want to be real clear about this. If you say you love freedom, but you don't believe freedom is for everybody, then the thing you love isn't freedom, it's privilege.
Thank you for that. But after that, father, let's examine who this guy is. DHS sources confirmed to Fox that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was pulled over driving an SUV belonging to a confessed human smuggler and illegal alien. Now, some Democrats are panicking over the prospect that voters will side against their party for defending Garcia. One Democratic consultant saying this to The Hill: people can't afford eggs, and you're flying to sit with someone who's accused of being in a gang. And I think it's almost more than accused. If you read the police report when he was pulled over originally in 2019, he's with MS-13 members. He profiles that way, even had a rank with it, wearing the paraphernalia. They knew he was in a gang then.
Yeah, at the very least, doesn't appear to be a good actor. Just take the word of his wife's court filings. I mean, I guess she's kind of backtracking on that now, but not a good actor. The Democratic Party, it is mind-blowing to me that they've decided the threat to democracy argument did not work. This esoteric, high-level, theoretical argument. You remember Biden in the blood red MAGA speech, you're a clear and present danger, MAGA. Democracy is at threat. The core of our republic's at threat. That didn't work. So let's pivot to due process for illegal immigrants. Not even illegal immigrant children. Due process for guys like Kilmar. Due process for Khalil, who's not a U.S. citizen. This is what they're pivoting to, as if that's going to work. It's not going to work. The Democratic National Committee is no longer such. It is now the Defending Non-Citizens Committee. Change your name, because right now it's malpractice, because you're not the Democratic National Committee. You are defending non-citizens. Try defending Americans, like the pro-life prisoners you put in jail. William Goodman, who didn't have toilet paper for 2 weeks, but the trans inmates got makeup, he told me. Try defending U.S. citizens and see how that works out.
And there's some Democrats who feel like you feel. Mo Alithi, worked for Hillary Clinton, came out, said, I'm pretty sure this is dangerous to make this guy a martyr. Henry Cuellar, with all due respect, when you're talking about bringing somebody back, and I know that they know needs due process, that he was in Maryland, you might want to think twice about getting behind this guy. And Greg, do you think it really hurts El Salvador knowing that potentially Illinois could cut them off?
Well, it's scary that Pritzker wants to boycott El Salvador, but it's pretty easy when they don't make Twinkies, cheesesteaks, and honey-baked hams. What else does he buy? It would be nice for him to stop boycotting exercise, is what I'm getting at. His head is so up his ass, mainly because there's so much room, that he is unaware of what he is doing to the party. Look, whenever I hear the phrase due process, I kind of zone out because I'm not a lawyer. But I did some research. Illegals aren't entitled to a full trial or even legal counsel. All they're supposed to do is refute the status that they are illegal. So this is an administrative issue, not a legal one. And deportation is not a punishment. You're not being deprived of liberty or property in a country that you are not entitled to be in. Plus, if you say, well, he was in danger in El Salvador, you haven't corroborated or proven that. You're buying into a narrative based on NGOs that train people to come up with backstories. Sometimes these backstories don't come up until they're forced to go. They never bring it up before, and then they go, oh, no, wait, I'm claiming asylum because I might get killed. That stuff is coached. The courts deemed him MS-13. The claims of danger weren't corroborated. I think the wife's first husband was frightened that she was dating a gang member. So we all know that this is all based on BS. And it troubles me that I have to even do this research?
I know
You know what I mean? I hate it. But I have to learn about this so-called model citizen because they keep bringing it up. But I guess it's good news. Just keep going after the perps. Keep ignoring the victims. You know, you don't care about the victims of crime. You don't care about the victims on college campuses. You don't care about the victims of hate crime hoaxes. You know, keep going. Your party's dead.
So, Dana, the one thing they're saying is he's in danger from a rival gang. Excuse me? Did you say rival gang? Does that mean you're in a gang? So he's worried about getting hurt. But just keep in mind, too, it came out a couple of days ago when they pulled him over and said, we're sending you back to El Salvador. They said, do you have a fear for your welfare? He said, no. Right. And by the way, he didn't walk back anything he did with his wife. His wife wrote in her handwriting, printed out everything she did. Mm-hmm. So she could say whatever she wants now. She was beat up, and I'm sure there's some pictures of her, sadly, of getting banged up. But go ahead, go visit him in prison.
I think that the Democrats, they just fail to, one, watch and listen to, we always give them the warnings like, of what's happening. And then you look at the slew of poll numbers that are coming out around the 100 days. President Trump's highest numbers, they've come down, all of the numbers have come down just a little bit, but he's still pretty high up there in the polarized nation that we have. His highest numbers are on deportations, including after 5 weeks of talking about Maryland, the good father, Garcia from El Salvador. Now, I still wake up every day thinking, surely today is the day that we find out that in the middle of the night, they grabbed him, they brought him back, there's a quick hearing, and then they send him someplace else, because that would end all of this. But that might come, given some hints on that. But here's the thing. The Democrats don't look at the other numbers. President Trump on the economy, he's making bold moves. That's not without consequence. And so the Republicans are like, yeah, Democrats, definitely keep going to El Salvador, definitely keep talking about deportations, because those are the numbers that are actually helping Trump. They're not talking about the things that are hurting him, because also they have no ideas on those either.
Jessica, do you think this is the dry hole we're portraying it as, or do you see some benefit for the Democrats continuing to get behind this guy?
Well, there's definitely benefit to it. And that doesn't mean that I don't think the majority of the emphasis should be on the economy. But if you look at our own latest polling, the Fox poll that came out yesterday, Reuters, YouGov, Quinnipiac, now Donald Trump is underwater on immigration, which was his strongest issue. So he's above on the border, right, and deportations. But generally speaking, on immigration, he's underwater. 2-to-1 margins in the YouGov poll that Americans think that Abrego Garcia should be brought back here.
Because they're not getting the information.
No, it's not because they're not getting the information. What they were able to do, actually, is understand contextually what is going on here. So if it's not just about Abrego Garcia, it is about...
What was the question? What was the poll question? I guarantee you...
Now you're a pollster?
No, I'm just saying, I guarantee you it was worded in a way to get an intended answer.
I can guarantee you that our own polling that showed him underwater on immigration was fair, and that the American public thinks that his policies are too harsh. And whether you think it's Abrego Garcia that's the most important case, or you want to talk about the Turkish PhD student in Boston...
Not him.
Her. That was ripped off the street for writing an op-ed.
What are the pronouns?
Don't do that. I do like it, though, because I know it means that I'm winning and making a compelling argument. But it's about her. Or Andre, the gay makeup artist.
Of course.
Or it's about the American...
He's gay. I get it. You always mention that he's gay as if that matters.
Well, it does matter,
because
that's why he got
it.
But that's why he got his asylum request approved, because he had credible fear for his life. Because they don't like people who are gay there.
In a gang.
How do you know? Andre was not in a gang.
How do you know? I'm going back to my initial point. None of these stories are real.
That's not true. There was an American...
on border security, he gets 55% approval.
In immigration, where Brian, I'm not making it up. You know what else? Brett Baer had a beautiful graphic. I might frame it on my wall that had the approval ratings for the last 6 presidents for the first 100 days. Donald Trump is now the lowest. He beat himself. So he was at 45% in the first 100 days of Trump 1.0, and now he's at 44%. His economic ratings have gone down by 20%. The American public don't trust him on cost of living, inflation, all the things he was hired to do. They know the tariffs are a tax on them. The CEOs of Walmart and Target and Home Depot have to go into his office and beg him to stop, so that the shelves won't be empty. There are containers coming from China that can't get here because of these tariffs, 145%. Or maybe it's 50%.
What does this have to do with the Maryland dad?
Right.
It has to do with what Trump is doing. And there are all of these GOP-appointed judges that are ruling against him, saying a path of perfect lawlessness, brazen example of retaliation.
Put it this way, you're just actually undoing your whole point, Jessica.
No, I'm not.
Because they are focusing on this guy who basically every day we find out that I don't know how he could be underwater. He might be under 50%, but he's not underwater on immigration.
Fine. Reuters, YouGov, Quinnipiac, just honestly,
he's winning
it's
on
fine.
deportation. You admitted that.
But
right.
2-1 that this guy should be returned. Listen,
Keep
you're
defending
right.
a gangbanger all you want.
But you're saying they should emphasize the economy. That's what you're saying.
I understand that you want me to try to unravel everything that I said. The economy is what drives people to the polls. He now only has a 27% rating with Hispanic voters because he's not focused on the economy and their costs haven't gone down.
So are you saying he's going to have a hard time being reelected in 2028?
Right.
Well, he's wearing, Eric Trump is wearing a hat that says Trump 2028
This is very
today,
similar when Ronald Reagan made titanic changes in the economy. Initially, people panicked.
Donald
and they
Trump.
We knew it wasn't going to be easy.
You did.
But he's actually doing just as titanic
people who
moves.
can afford to
At
sit
least
there and
he's
say,
leading the country. Your guy
gutter.
wasn't even present.
We'll see. Big Beautiful Bill is on deck. Meanwhile, coming up, pro-Hamas agitators are pitching tents again as Harvard refuses to compromise with President Trump's crackdown on anti-Semitism. So glad I didn't go to Yale.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.